Did Giannis just drop the coldest bar of 2025 just 3 days before the year ended? After his first day back, the silence broke. After wiping his Twitter account, his social media, after the mass deletions, after the injury hiatus, Giannis posted one picture on X, formerly known as Twitter, the Windmill in Chicago. And with that picture, one caption, "I ain't no painter, but you get the picture." Most people see a dunk in a tweet, but I see a blueprint. And today, we're going to talk about why the last 3 weeks of Giannis's rehab were not about fixing a calf strain. The last 3 weeks of his rehab were about plotting the most elaborate exit strategy in NBA history. And welcome back to the It's Buckets Show. My name is Buckets. I quit my job to study and bet on the NBA. Roll the clip.
In a dimension where the game never stops, this is the It's Buckets Show.
And this episode of the It's Bucket Show is going to look a little bit different because I wrote an 8-page essay about why Giannis is leaving and where he's going to. Broke it down into 5 chapters, so let's get right into it. Chapter 1, the weapon, the red shoes. To understand Giannis's tweet, you have to understand the shoes he chose to wear in his first game back from injury. For his grand return, Giannis did not wear the new Freak 7s. He did not take this opportunity to boost his shoe sales or promo a Christmas colorway. In my opinion, as someone who studies the NBA for a living, he strategically walked out with a deep pull from his closet. He decided to wear a pair of red Player Edition Freak 2s. These aren't just old shoes. These are 2021 shoes. These are championship year shoes. These are the shoes that he debuted on January 1st, 2021. And 2021 was the year Giannis stopped being the nice guy from Greece and created an alter ego where he became the unstoppable bully of the NBA. Just take a minute to think about the psychology of that. It's December 2025 and Giannis is sitting at home injured, watching his team struggle. He had time to think, he had time to plan, and he had time to map his return, not as the savior, but this time as the villain. I think he laced up these shoes strategically to make a subtle statement to the league and relive the days that he chased his first championship ring. And in my opinion, I don't think he wore red because it matched the Christmas holiday. And I don't think he wore red because it matched the Chicago Bulls home court. I think he wore red as a warning light and to foreshadow the color of the next team he will be traded to. We are about 5 weeks away from the NBA trade deadline, and I think Giannis is ready to chase another ring, and it will not be with the Milwaukee Bucks. He did not wear these shoes for fashion. He wore these shoes for a comparison. He's sitting here talking to the media about how his team is 11th in the East, and he is disgusted. And not only that, he put these 2021 shoes on to remind himself what a killer looks like, and then he went out and acted like one, creating a scuffle at the end of the game. Which brings us to Chapter 2, the crime, the windmill. And back to the tweet that Giannis put out after the game. His windmill, yeah, it looks sick, but there's a deeper narrative behind it. Let me tell you what that dunk really meant. Giannis is a student of the game. He knows the unwritten rules of the NBA better than anyone. He knows when you're up by almost 10 points, you dribble the clock out. But he didn't do that this time. In his first game back, he went coast to coast and had a crazy windmill dunk unguarded as time expired. He invited a brawl from the other team and started the scuffle that happened after the game. And as a student of the game myself, I'm sitting here thinking, why? Why would a franchise player want all the smoke in a meaningless December game? And then it hit me, because controversy creates friction, and friction breaks things. I think he spent weeks injured plotting this exact moment. I think he sat at home and say, how do I make things uncomfortable? How do I show the front office I am not just uncomfortable, but I am volatile? How do I get the media to ask me if I'm uncomfortable and ask me if I'm unhappy in Milwaukee? The answer is simple. You create a scene. You wear bright red shoes on a night that your team is wearing cream-colored jerseys. You put the whole league on notice and you dunk when you shouldn't. You make the organization sweat and you demand that the media puts you as the front page of their headlines the next morning. I've got the quote right here, so let's read it. We're 11th in the East. We've got to keep finding an identity. If that's to get a little bit scrappy at the end, so be it. We're not the champs. Why should we play the clock out and have respect and fair play? We're fighting for our lives right now. I've been 13 years in the league. If we keep on losing, probably half of the team is not going to be here. We're not going to make the playoffs. And if this is what has to happen for everyone to wake up and understand we're fighting for our lives, so be it. Now, did you hear what he said in the middle? He said, why should we have respect? That is the death of nice guy Giannis. Again, we've seen this before. He is telling us explicitly, respect is for winners. We are losers, so I am going to be disrespectful. He goes on to say, if we keep on losing, probably half of the team is not going to be here. That is not just a post-game comment. That is a threat. That is an ultimatum to the front office and his teammates. He's saying, wake up to his team. And even though the Chicago Bulls were the ones that got mad at all this, that was nothing to do with the Bulls. That was a shock collar for his own Bucks. He had to do something so shocking, so out of character, it forced the entire team to look in the mirror. And again, in my opinion, he is talking about his own exit without directly saying it, because he is half the team. And if they keep losing, half the team will leave, and it will be him leaving. Chapter 3, the tweet, which brings us back to this masterpiece. After the game, probably around the time that he got back to his hotel room in Chicago, he decides to make one of his first tweets since his mass deletion of his social media accounts. The caption, "I ain't no painter, but you get the picture." That's a bar. One of the coldest bars of 2025, just 3 days before the year ended. And not only is it a bar, it's a triple entendre, so let's peel back the layers. Layer 1, the literal. He dominates the paint. He is saying, I own this area and I will dunk on whoever I want, whenever I want. Villain Giannis has returned. Layer 2, the cultural. Go back to 2021. Who's name dropping Giannis in their songs? In 2021, Drake dropped the famous line on Certified Lover Boy, at least keep it a buck like Antetokounmpo. And tonight, Giannis is reclaiming the main character energy, but not as a star who is smiling with an O'Brien trophy. And this time, he's not waiting for a rapper to drop bars about him. He's dropping his own bar, and he is keeping it at buck. In layer 3, like we talked about, the threat. You get the picture. He isn't mocking the media. He is mocking the Bucks. He knows this post-game fight will get analyzed, and he doesn't need to request a trade on ESPN like everyone has done in the past. He showed us the red shoes. He showed us the disrespect, and he showed us he's ready to burn it all to the ground. He's basically saying, don't fucking play with me. He's not painting a picture, he's painting a war scene. And he's telling the league, if I have to play the villain to save this season or force my way out of it, I will. So he's right, he's not a painter, he's an architect, and he's designing his way out of Milwaukee in ways that no one has ever done. And as a super fan of the NBA, I got my popcorn and I am here for it. So chapter 4, what's next? Where is he going? This is where my personal theory comes in, where I think I know exactly where he's going to go next. But first, we need to give you some background information on 2 key pieces of my theory for Giannis' next destination. Number 1, MLSE, Maple Leafs Sports and Entertainment. And number 2, Masai Ujiri, the former Raptors president and also former vice chairman of MLSE, who stepped down from both of those positions this summer of 2025. Some background for those of you that might not know much about Masai Ujiri. He is a very successful businessman in the NBA and has been for over a decade. He is a man of Nigerian descent, which I'm only mentioning because it plays a key factor in this theory that connects back to Giannis. They have that in common. In fact, not only did Masai see potential in Giannis in the 2013 NBA draft, he actively tried to draft him on draft night, and there are videos out there of him in the draft room trying to make trades minutes before the Toronto Raptors had their draft pick come up. Unfortunately, their picks didn't line up, and the Raptors weren't able to make a trade to move up high enough to grab Giannis before he was gone. However, even after Giannis got drafted, Masai played a huge role in Giannis' life outside of basketball. I did one of the most sentimental and meaningful things that anyone has ever done for Giannis in his entire life. But before I get into that, I need to give you some more background info on Giannis. Giannis was born in Athens, Greece, and both of his parents were athletes. His dad was a soccer player, and his mom was a high jumper. Before Giannis was born, both of his parents fled Lagos, Nigeria, in hopes for a better life for them and their family, which means Giannis was born in Greece, and since he didn't have the bloodline of Greece, he was not a citizen of Greece, and since he wasn't born in Nigeria, he was not a citizen of Nigeria. He had no citizenship for the first 18 years of his life, and that means he cannot leave the country because he doesn't have the papers to do so. But eventually, his success on the basketball court playing semi-pro basketball in Greece led him to obtain his citizenship so he can leave Greece to go to the NBA draft where he had hopes of getting drafted. But after he got drafted, his parents still had no citizenship themselves. And that's where Raptors president Masai Ujiri stepped in and personally lent a handout and played a key role in helping his family become citizens of Greece. You can look back, Giannis is on record showing his love and appreciation for Masai. And if you know anything about Giannis, you know he is a very big family man. And it meant the world to him that someone was there to look out for his family in a time of need, before the cameras, before the lights, before everyone wanted Giannis. Now fast forward 5 more years to 2018, Masai started making big gambles in the NBA. And those gambles paid off, changing NBA history as we know it. In June of 2018, he hired a basketball genius by the name of Nick Nurse. And 1 month later, he goes out and acquires superstar Kawhi Leonard. And 1 year later, those moves were the reason that the Toronto Raptors were able to win their first championship and bring the Larry O'Brien Trophy to Canada for the first time ever. Fast forward 5 more years to 2023. A lot of changes have gone down since then. It's been 4 years since the Raptors won a ring, and it's been 2 years since Giannis won his ring in 2021. Masai is no longer the 43-year-old president of the Toronto Raptors. He is the 53-year-old president of the Toronto Raptors. And in the natural nature of business, anytime you hold a position of power in an organization that has tens and hundreds of millions of dollars moving around, very aware of your time holding that position of power, and you have to usually strategically craft your exit out of such an organization. And Masai was on record saying he didn't like the aftermath of the 2019 ring, and he wanted to go out with another bang before he finished his time in Toronto. So what does he do in June 2023? He follows his original blueprint that got him a championship in 2019. He goes out and hires another basketball genius by the name of Darko, I don't want to mess up the pronunciation, Rajakovic, and he resets the Toronto Raptors' foundation and strategy to be led with core values of a European basketball play. And I think this is a very strategic move that he was setting a foundation to bring in a European player years down the line. In fact, I think this strategy and foundation fits perfectly with the guy that he had his eyes on in the 2013 NBA draft. I think he had his eyes on a player that just won a championship 2 years prior to hiring Darko. Because don't forget, step 2 of this blueprint was going out to acquire a previous NBA champion in Kawhi Leonard. Well, get your popcorn ready, because I think Masai is playing chess up there in Toronto, and this acquisition of Giannis to the Raptors has been in the making for more than 4 years now. Giannis has literally said on camera, Masai helped me and my family. He's an unbelievable guy. So Masai lets Darko take over the locker room and lay a foundation of intensity and European values, which is exactly what Giannis was brought up on when he started playing basketball in Greece. And then in the 2025 trade deadline, February 2025, he goes out and acquires Brandon Ingram, a former most improved player and all-star. We all know B.I. is a lifetime bucket getter, and he's a lifetime winner. He led his high school in North Carolina to 4 straight championships before getting drafted to the Los Angeles Lakers. He then won Most Improved Player of the League and made an All-Star team, but that does not fit the formula because he is not a certified NBA champion. He's just a bucket getter. It doesn't fit the mold for step 2 of the blueprint of Masai's plan to win another championship in Toronto. Well, 5 months later, in the 2025 NBA draft, which was only 6 months ago, I think Masai made another chess piece move to acquire Giannis Antetokounmpo. Masai shocked the world by drafting Colin Murray Boyles, and it's very evident that Masai shocked Colin himself, because when Colin was put on the big screen and stood up on draft night, he dropped an F-bomb as he was getting drafted. Go ahead and roll the clip. Colin Murray Boyles was disgusted that he had to go to Toronto. He stood up, shook his head, and dropped the F-bomb on national television. Clear sign he does not want to be in Toronto. So why did Masai draft him? Well, just days after the NBA draft, the Raptors let go of Masai Ujiri. And the very man that Masai hired in 2013 himself, who grew to be the vice president, general manager, and his right-hand man for over a decade in Toronto, Bobby Webster, was left to answer these questions. After draft night just 6 months ago, Bobby Webster sparked controversy about should you be drafting the best player on the board or should you be drafting a player that fits into your system. And it was widely known that the 2025 NBA draft was a draft that the Toronto Raptors needed a backup center. And with the 9th pick on the NBA draft, and Cooper Flagg and Con Knipples, Duke teammate Kaman Malawak on the draft board, it made perfect sense for them to draft Kaman Malawak. So why did they choose Colin Murray Boyles instead and let Kaman Malawak get chose one pick later at 10? I got another quote here from a couple days after draft night, so let's read it. Listening to Bobby Webster, the interviewer said, "You guys talked about needing a backup center, a young center for a while now. Is that no longer a need? Is that something you guys want to address? How does CMB, Colin Murray Boyles, sort of fit into that equation?" And this is the answer that points towards Giannis coming to Toronto. Listen to this. I think he, talking about Colin Murray Boyles, probably feels comfortable at 4 or 5, sometimes maybe even playing 3, which is the small forward. If you've talked to him, I also think big picture, we're still in talent acquisition mode. We're not so worried about the position as we try to find these players. Obviously, teams change a lot and you can trade. There's a lot of different movement there. So for us, we're just more, who do we think is the best player? And personally, as someone who studies the NBA landscape for a living, this is clear as day, a draft pick that is a top 10 draft pick who was drafted for a major upcoming trade. And with Miles Turner now in the Bucks organization, I think it makes a lot of sense why the Raptors drafted Colin Murray Boyles, because you can't draft Kaman Malawak and then trade him to the Milwaukee Bucks, because the Milwaukee Bucks would deny that trade because they don't need Kaman Malawak. They need a lengthy defender like Colin Murray Boyles to replace Giannis if he were to leave. I think the writing is on the wall here. And I think Masai and Bobby Webster came together and drafted a trade piece to acquire Giannis the following winter, which we are currently in right now. But it gets a lot better than this. I got 3 pages left in my essay, so let's go to the next chapter. All right, chapter 5, why Toronto? The Raptors are not rebuilding anymore. They are pre-building. The Raptors are one superstar away from potentially owning the East for the next 5 years. And unlike these other trade destinations like the Knicks, the Heat, the Hawks, Toronto can offer the Milwaukee Bucks the one thing that they need, a way out of hell without tanking. Not only can the Toronto Raptors offer Colin Murray Boyles a top 10 draft pick from last year, but they can package him with RJ Barrett, Jakob Poeltl, and a slew of draft picks that no one else in the NBA can offer. Poeltl is ready to be a backup center to Miles Turner right now. Unlike Malawak, who is 19 years old and will need a couple years to put on muscle and refine his skills, Poeltl is ready to play right now and can be plugged into the Bucks system seamlessly. This is my perfect reason for why Giannis is going to go to Toronto. It has nothing to do with the actual basketball X's and O's. Let's get into it. First of all, an absolute legend and one of my idols in the NBA space, Brian Windhorst, reported last June that the Toronto Raptors are hunting for a big fish, and there's no bigger fish in NBA free agency than Giannis Antetokounmpo. But first, let's go back to the background information that I gave you about Masai Ujiri and MLSE, the Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment Group. He parted ways with not only the Raptors, but MLSE as well. And this is where it gets really, really interesting. The MLSE organization also owns the Raptors, Blue Jays, Maple Leafs, Toronto FC in the MLS, and Rogers Communication just paid $4.7 billion to acquire 75% of MLSE this past summer. They finalized the deal and dropped a fucking bag. They made a seismic wave in sports ownership industry just 6 months ago. And I don't want to get these details wrong about MLSE, so I'm going to read these off paper. On the conversation of millions and billions of dollars being spent on sports teams, let's talk about the World Series. Who won the World Series? It was the Los Angeles Dodgers. But who did the Dodgers face and who hosted the other half of that World Series? It was the Toronto Blue Jays, the same Blue Jays that were part of the $4.7 billion acquisition just 4 months before the World Series. And what's so special about the Toronto Blue Jays and their stadium that hosted the World Series? Well, major renovations were privately funded by none other than Rogers Communications, the same Rogers Communications that spent billions on owning the majority of MLB, NBA, NHL, and MLS team just months prior. These renovations cost about 400 million Canadian dollars, which is equivalent to almost 300 million US dollars. These renovations included And these renovations included lower bowl transformation, which demolished and rebuilt the entire lower seating bowl for better viewing and reduced foul territory. The outfield district, which created new social areas, patios, bars, decks like the WestJet flight deck. They had new player facilities, upgraded clubhouses, new weight rooms, and new family spaces. They had new premium spaces like several modern premium clubs and lounges at the stadium, and they had new field and lighting, replacing the playing surfaces and new lighting installed. These renovations aim to create a world-class, baseball-specific venue, moving away from its original multi-purpose design. And what else is MLSE doing? And why is this relevant to Giannis going to the Toronto Raptors? Because listen to this, MLSE is also in the middle of another massive renovation, spending $350 million estimated on Scotiabank Arena, where the Raptors and the Maple Leafs will both be playing. In my personal opinion, it makes way too much sense that they're getting ready to host another NBA Finals in a few years. And in order to get there, you're gonna need someone like Giannis to lead you there. They have the money, they have the trade assets, and they have new management to make this the perfect landing spot for Giannis. But it gets even better. Who owns the other 25% of MLSE? A guy by the name of Larry Tannenbaum. And what's he currently investing in? Big baller Larry and his group Kilmer Sports Ventures recently followed this blueprint by shelling out over $100 million recently to build a WNBA arena, which is conveniently located on the same coastline of Lake Ontario as the Scotiabank Arena, where the massive rebuild of the Raptors and Maple Leaf Stadium is. In fact, this Coca-Cola Coliseum will be home to a brand new WNBA team in 2026, which is just 2 days away. This is only a 10-minute drive down the road from Scotiabank Arena, and they will be the new home of the Toronto Tempo, which cost Larry and team a nice $50 million fee to join the NBA with a new team. Point being, money talks. We just saw it a few months ago with the Blue Jays, and we are about to see the same ownership group run back the blueprint with the Toronto Raptors. And while on this topic, isn't it funny how Caitlin Clark comes to the Indiana Fever, and then all of a sudden the Indiana Pacers make an NBA Finals? And wouldn't it be funny to see the same exact thing happen in Toronto in a few years from now? Well, Larry Tannenbaum and Kilmer Sports Ventures just paid huge money to bring the WNBA to Toronto for 2026. They need this team to be a massive hit immediately. And how do you guarantee sold-out crowds for a WNBA team? You turn the entire city into a basketball capital of the world. You bring in Giannis into the city for the first year of your new WNBA team. You create a fever pitch of basketball hype that spills from Scotiabank Arena down the street to the Coca-Cola Coliseum, the arena right next door for the Tempo's home court. Tannenbaum isn't just buying the Raptors a championship contender. He's buying an entire marketing engine for his entire sports empire, including the Toronto Tempo. Bringing in Giannis will spill over into the success of his other investments, which is the Toronto Maple Leafs in the same stadium and the Toronto Tempo down the street. All connected, all would make money off of Giannis coming to Toronto. When you're dropping $700 million, you have to have a plan in place to make that $700 million back. You can't just drop all that money and then not make big moves. You need to hunt a big fish, like Brian Windhorst said, and there is no bigger fish to hunt than Giannis. I want you to imagine this, Giannis courtside at a Tempo game. That's viral marketing you literally cannot buy. Stop looking at the salary cap and look at the bank account. In September 2025, MLSE didn't just restructure, they consolidated a $4.7 billion takeover. And what happened immediately after the Blue Jays hosted the World Series? The city of Toronto didn't just watch, they generated hundreds of millions of revenue in a single month. The ownership saw the power of a winning city. Now, what they do, what any successful business does, you keep attempting to replicate success by doing exactly what has proven to work and regenerating millions to get your investment back in the safest way. You don't just drop $350 million on an arena just to watch a play-in team like the Toronto Raptors currently are. MLSE is actively turning Scotiabank Arena into a palace fit for royalty. They are building this stage for a king. But here is the business genius behind the Giannis move. It's the Indiana blueprint, because look what happened in Indianapolis. The Caitlin Clark hype with the Fever didn't just stay in the WNBA, it spilled over. The Pacers rode that wave of basketball hysteria all the way to a deep playoff run, and it was the feedback loop of hype. MLSE wants to recreate that, but on a global scale. If you're Giannis, what do you want? You want an owner that spends unlimited money like MLSE and Larry Tannenbaum. You want a city that treats you like a god, which you want a facility upgrade that rivals the best facilities in the world. And you want to beat the allegations that you cannot win without perfect circumstances. Winning in Toronto against a fading Thunder dynasty 3 or 4 years from now would cement him as one of the GOATs of our generation. It's the hardest road, but it's the only road that I can see with Giannis leaving Milwaukee. And to loop it all back, you want to go to a foundation that was built for you by someone who pulls at your heartstrings. You want a GM who saved your family and made a home just for you. He built this nest for Giannis. This is a personal touch, not just a financial transaction. The red shoes signaled the exit, but the red shoes also signaled his next destination. He foreshadowed his future in Toronto. The painter tweet signaled the plan, but the destination, that was written a long time ago in the government offices of Athens, Greece, when Masai Ujiri was helping his parents become citizens of Greece, helping his family out in a time of need. It is Toronto. It has always been Toronto, and I'm Buckets, and it's Buckets, and you just got the picture. If you enjoyed this breakdown in podcast style, drop a like and subscribe to support me so I can keep on analyzing the NBA like this for decades to come. I have no plans of slowing down. And like I said, I'm not good at this podcast stuff. I'm just chasing a lifelong dream of being an NBA analyst for a living. And no one is good at what they do when they first start. But if you put the reps in and you bring that Kobe Mamba mentality to anything you want, you can achieve anything in this world. So yes, I will not be good by next year. But if I'm good 5 or 10 years down the road, then I'll have reached my goal. I'm going to keep putting the reps in. I thank you all for all the support in 2025. I got 60,000 followers on Instagram, only 1,000 here on YouTube. Let's see where I'm going to be at by the end of 2026. I appreciate you all. And as always, it's Buckets. Let's go.